Welcome to Pampale Podcast, where we are unpacking opinions and changing destinations. I am your host, Shirley Altador, where each week we will chat about how to rise strong out of all types of obstacles that come with relationships. Through personal life experiences and discussions ranging from infidelity, trust, forgiveness, sex, heartbreak, self-love, and so much more. I am passionate and obsessed to provide guidance to every woman to create a better life. Let's dive in, pull up a seat, make sure you're cozy, and get ready to be challenged and encouraged while you learn. With me, your virtual girlfriend. Welcome back to another episode of Pampale Podcast. Today we have another episode of Story Time, and we do have two special guests with us today. They are a husband and wife coach team. I have Yana and Rick, who are going to be introducing themselves and tell us a little bit about what they do. Today we're going to be talking about the invisible pitfall that keeps us from having fulfillment and joy in our marriage. Yana and Rick, welcome. Thank you for being a guest on the podcast. How are you guys today?
Thank you so
We're
much.
doing great. How are you? Thanks for having us.
Wonderful. I am doing well. So introduce yourselves to everybody. What do you do? Your official titles, since I didn't say it.
Yeah, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'm a transformational coach. I've been coaching for not as much time as my last profession. I'm an Emmy award-winning producer, worked for NBC Universal for 20 years, launched a business, and made my first documentary and sold it to Amazon. And I wasn't really fulfilled by all that, so I really wanted to help people and make a difference in the world. So I started my transformational training in 2005. I've done thousands of hours of seminars and curriculums, and I've written transformational curriculums. I wrote one for a nonprofit organization that supports at-youth children. I co-wrote our curriculum that we have in the Transform Your Marriage program, which we'll tell you about later. And I've committed my life to helping men and women, particularly focusing on men lately. I also have my own podcast. I have the Unstoppable Man Project, which is going to launch in August. And that's what I do. I support people in living powerful, heart-centered lives. That's purpose-focused.
Awesome. I love to hear that because we all need empowerment, men, women, children. So that's good to hear. And before we have Yana introduce herself, was your lovely wife your inspiration?
Was my lovely wife my inspiration for?
To go into the coaching business. Did she start before you?
Was she my inspiration? I don't know. I think she was sort of, maybe. Like, she was a bit of a catalyst for sure. Because she went down her road. Right? And I think, like, just seeing her and the difference that she was making for people, really spoke to me that she was doing it at that level. Like, I like to write and I like to talk, and coaching is something that I'm good at and I enjoy doing. But really, it's watching people go through that transformation that they go through when they're stuck on something, and then all of a sudden they realize what's in the way, and then there's a paradigm shift, and then their life transforms, and that's really what lights me up about it. So I would say for sure, to a very real degree, she did, absolutely. But because she's so amazing and she was making such a wonderful difference with people, that's really what got me.
Good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I love.
You like that?
I love to hear.
That was my endorsement of you.
Thank you so much. So I'm Yana, and I am a transformational marriage coach, and I help women really rediscover the connection that they desire with their partners by deepening their relationship to themselves and really bringing consciousness into their relationship with their partners, bringing consciousness into their lives. And, my quick story is I was working with women since I was 18. I'm 39 now, so for 21 years. So I started on the path of really, doing makeup and hair for women and seeing their beauty and supporting them and really seeing their own beauty. And after becoming a mom and getting married myself and really getting that this is like not easy, and having true connection, true partnership really takes something. It's not just like this fairy tale that we dream of. And
it's not.
No. And going back and working with, because I was working primarily with brides, going back and working with those brides, I felt like I was taking part in this inauthentic way of supporting women in like some, I don't know, dream that, not that it didn't exist, but there was just more to it. So I just found myself after a while, like all I wanted to do is share with them how to actually stay married, how to like stay in love, how to feel happy, because I was going through my own journey of figuring that out. So then after, a few years of not feeling that fulfillment, or it's not even the fulfillment, I wanted more. So that's how I went down the path of marriage coaching and really, supporting women in finding that joy and that fulfillment, and sharing with them what Rick and I have really, um, embodied in our marriage and all the work that we've done in our relationship, and sharing that with the women, and yeah, and founded the Transform Your Marriage program.
Nice. It's interesting that you say you were a hairstylist, right?
So I did hair and makeup for,
hair and makeup, but it's just like, when those people are sitting in the chair, you're like therapy for them. They spill the whole guts out when you go get a haircut, when you go get your hair done, when they're doing their makeup, they're telling you their whole lives. So it was a nice transition from doing that. And now you're a coach. I mean, it flowed nice and well. You went from making them look pretty to now fixing their life and getting their lives together.
Yeah, and I don't like using the word fix because, I'm not there to fix anybody. I'm there to really see them as whole, complete, and perfect, and for them to really get back to who they really are. Because a lot of times women, especially, after we get married and especially after we have kids, we lose ourselves. And, this picture perfect life that we once imagined was possible is full of stress, overwhelm. We start, feeling disconnected from ourselves, from our partners, and kind of get off track. So what I really do, and I help women do for themselves, is discover, who am I now that I have all these new roles, and how do I get back on track to who I really am? So yeah, so that's
Absolutely.
like what,
That's very true. So how long have you two been married?
10 years in September.
Yep.
He knows the date, Yana. That's good.
Oh, yeah.
Rick, you're on top of it. You see how he quickly blurted out? Oh, I'm going to get brownie points. Let me get 10 years in December. And he even knows the month.
Oh, yeah.
10 years in September.
That's right. Yeah.
No, okay. So
very good.
Very good. That's a nice long time. And so today we're going to be talking about, my brain, I feel like at 38, I'm like losing it. The invisible pitfall that keeps us from having fulfillment and joy in our marriage. So as coaches, what advice do you have? How are we starting off? Like, what have you guys experienced in your relationship that you feel as though marriages fail? Or is my question?
No, I got it. I got it. I'm gonna say I'll start off with this part about. So I'll answer your question this way. Before we got married, we had a conversation about what marriage looked like and what was predictable about marriage. So before we got married, we were like, what's predictable about how the marriage is going to go based on what we know, what we inherited, what we see, what our parents went through, what our grandparents went through, what our uncles and aunts and friends and society, and what do we know? Like if we gathered all together, what's predictable about the way marriage is going to go? And so we had that conversation, and it was a predictable shit show. Like there was going to be, peaks and valleys and all of that, but in the end, we didn't have any evidence of a marriage really working out.
Mm-hmm.
And if we did, it was like an anomaly. But when we took stock of everything, there wasn't anybody who was like, ooh, like they really got that dialed in. They're really like on fire in their marriage and in their lives, and and they make that whole family thing work and the couple thing work, and and so we really sat down and we started with that. We started with what's predictable. If we were to fall into the roles that we've inherited, what would be predictable about marriage?
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of debunked what was already there about marriage. And Yana will tell you more about what we coined that term as, right? She'll tell you more about the big lie, which is what we call it in the program. But the idea that when we got married, that it was going to be this happily ever after concept. Now, I'm not idealizing it or romanticizing it, but you know what I mean. That it was just always going to work out. And what we realized was that we were getting into the relationship, and in the background, what we weren't discussing, what we never said to each other, was we were afraid it wasn't going to work out.
You were scared to bring that topic up?
Yeah, because it wasn't distinguished. It wasn't anything that we were conscious of.
Do you think
like,
it's
I'm really
because...
talking about...
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Rick.
No, go for it. Do I think it's because...
the princess and prince fairy tale that's created when we're younger?
I think that's part of it, for sure, right? Like, the idea of marriage wasn't romanticized until, I think, like, the 18th century, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before that, it was really, based on property and that kind of thing. And so if I wanted to retain my property, I'd get married and, I'd pass it down and that kind of thing. Right. It wasn't something that we romanticized about it until, the players, in 18th century started making plays and stuff about it and singing about my love and, Romeo and Juliet kind of stuff. Right. Maybe not the best example, but you follow what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying. I totally understand. I totally understand where you're going.
Yeah. So I that's part of it, right? That's why I said like a society and culture has something to do with it, because that frames our belief of what's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can only relate to the reality that we are born inside of, right? It's not until we start to distinguish the things that we take for granted as what they are, right? An inherited version of reality, or inherited version of marriage, inherited version of what it is to be a man or a woman, or that kind of thing. I mean, we've been in a patriarchal society for around 3,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so our version of what it is to be a man and a woman is governed by that society, by that framework, by that context.
Exactly.
Right. And so all we did was we really took a look at this particular institution and we said, what is it already and what are we really creating? Gotcha. And so that's why we started looking at, well, what's there that doesn't work for us? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Well, yeah. And before we got married, we really were honest about that and open and like frank, right? Not because I think what happens with a lot of couples and why, you asked the question why a lot of marriages fail. We have this big expectation. We have this illusion that is, inherited from society, from our parents or grandparents, from culture, from movies, cartoons, whatever, right? It's like we're programmed to believe that, especially I think as women, that, oh, once you get married and you find the one, then everything is just, rainbows and butterflies and you're all set and you're safe and all of these things. And then what happens when we get married is, a whole lot of challenges that we face with ourselves, with, I believe like marriage or a relationship is a vehicle for you to really do your inner work. But most of the time, not even most of the time, I'd say like 99.99% of people don't relate to it like that. Their relationship to marriage is it's going to be something that, is going to save me, or at least for a lot of women. So that's, where we really went to work on kind of debunking that myth and that expectation. And not like it goes away completely, but first just really being honest about it, and looking at it from a perspective of like, okay, how can we be responsible
Mm-hmm.
for that? How can we really create um, what we desire,
Mm-hmm.
and what's bigger than these beliefs that we've inherited?
Exactly. I agree with you guys because I do believe that when two people are in a relationship and they decide to get married at 38 years old, I think about 20 years ago, the mindset that I have now is not the mindset I had 20 years ago because, like you two said, I had these unrealistic expectations that, I was going to meet the perfect individual that was never going to do anything to break my heart. And why would he? He loves me, he cares about me, so he would never do anything to break my heart. Now, I've been in a relationship for 23 years. We're not officially married, but we've been through, I think, everything that there is to go through in our relationship, cheating and everything. If you had asked me 23 years ago, would I stay if he cheated? Hell, motherfucking no. We both cheated. And then I think to myself, am I a crappy individual because I cheated on my spouse? No, I just made a poor decision and he made a poor decision and we decide to work it out and move on. So I totally get what you guys are saying because when I started the relationship, I had these I tried to create this idealistic, perfect man. And he tried to do the same thing for me, where in actuality, we're like imperfect human beings walking around trying to do the best that we can to live a perfect life, which that's not even true. That even relationships, they're never going to be perfect. There's always going to be. I remember I went to my counselor and my counselor said, and I said to my counselor, we argue too much. He was like, well, you're putting a negative connotation on argument. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing with your partner. It's learning how to rectify the situation. And this is what you two do not know how to do. And when he told me that, I was like, how dare you? I do know how to rectify an argument when actuality I didn't. And that's why we're always like, we're so upset with each other. So I totally get what you guys are saying. We create this unrealistic expectations and really I know I tried to create this perfect individual that just doesn't exist anywhere, nowhere. And even to this day, he's still not perfect, but I love his imperfections. And, we were able to take negative situations and turn them into positives. So I totally understand where you guys are coming from. So now in your program, when you talk about debunking, what are the steps that a person would take first?
You have to first identify the context. So your view for whatever for your relationship, right? So, and your context when you're struggling with it, right? When you've got issues, right, in your marriage, the first step is identifying the context. You have to be aware that something is happening, right? So there's stuff you know, and there's stuff that you don't know, and there's stuff that you don't know. So when when a particular context is running the show, you don't have access to the stuff you don't know. So the very first thing you have to do is put a magnifying glass over that context. And so typically that context, the easiest way to get to it is just to think about your complaints. What are the complaints you have about your spouse? Right? How does he get when whatever? How does she get when whatever? Is it communication? Is it lack of equality in the house? Is it lack of commitment? Is it when you guys, get into finances? Is it lack of trust? Something you were talking about earlier, right? Infidelity. So there are complaints that we have about each other. And the very first step is you've got to identify the complaint. We have it like when we wish somebody was different or something was different, that wishing it was different or that he or she was different, that is enough. Like, I have the right to wish you were different because, damn it, if I asked 7 billion people on the planet, they'd all agree with me. But wishing he or she was different isn't going to make him or her different.
Exactly.
And that's not going to change anything. Right? You really have to once you get related to your context and you identify the complaints, then you really step into who's responsible for the life I'm living.
Mm-hmm.
Do I get to fast forward on my life? Like, let's talk about this. We say fast forward on your life
Mm-hmm.
with the complaints that you've got right now, right? And fast forward 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it is. And you're on your deathbed and you look back on your life. You get to be right about all the complaints you had. But did you get to live the life you wanted? Did you get to have the marriage you wanted, the family you wanted, the relationship you wanted? Being right isn't really worth it when you put it into perspective.
Are you trying to also say, like, sometimes you really need to sit back and think about your complaints? And I like to use myself as an example because it's perfect. I remember in the beginning of our relationship, he didn't want to wash dishes. So I found a reason to always complain about that because I didn't know any other way to try to both of us to meet in the middle. He didn't want to wash dishes. And truthfully, there was nothing wrong with that. But I felt as though if you wanted to be in a relationship with me, that's something you need to do.
You would want
Yeah,
to do it.
I want it and I need to do, but
Yeah.
we didn't talk about it. We were just both being both alpha people, expressing our viewpoints, not listening to each other, just expressing ourselves and in our own little bubble over dishes. And that's just a simple example, of course, but I get what you're trying to say about think about your complaints.
Well, and the dishes is it's a surface complaint.
That's right.
There's something underneath that.
Yep.
That is it's very much deeper than this relationship. So, there's a complaint that's underneath that. Because when you ask yourself, why is it a problem that he doesn't want to wash the dishes?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's underneath that? Why is it a problem? What do you make it mean?
Well,
so
I get what you're saying. And I guess it was more like, I don't know. I guess at that time, I think, you know what? I think it was just when I came home from work. It was just like, I left here with no dishes. Now I'm coming back and there's dishes. You're a pig. I don't know. I guess I never thought about it that way, but that's a good point to point out. I don't know what the real true underlying issue. I mean, now we've resolved it. And you know how we resolved it though? You want to hear the funny part is? We delegated to the kids. I don't even have to do it now.
No, that's great. But that's awesome. I know. And
what happened? We grew some kids
and made them do it.
What happened? We delegated that chore to the children.
That's
so
funny,
life is perfect now because Shirley doesn't even do the dishes anymore, and I'm good.
But Shirley, consider that there is still an underlying complaint that you have. That you had, the dishes were just a trigger for that complaint.
True.
And it was something along the lines of, he doesn't support me, he doesn't help, he doesn't care.
I'm doing too much. I do everything.
All alone. I mean, women, especially women, we have something
everything
along those lines. And it's like a consistent complaint that we have. And the dishes are just triggers for those complaints. And those complaints we've had, way before your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a complaint you inherited from your mom, from your grandmother. Like, this is a common complaint that women just, pass on to each other. And we all have agreement about it.
And, I never thought about that, Yana. And you're right, because I can now hear my mom saying to my dad, you don't do anything.
Yeah, and that is super common.
Yes, you don't do anything.
Yeah, that's super common.
I remember that verbiage. You don't do anything. What are you sitting here doing?
Yeah. So for us, he doesn't wash the dishes. I mean, it's funny, but it's really really deep.
You're
so
absolutely
he doesn't wash
right.
the dishes, and what you make it mean is he doesn't do anything or whatever that you've learned from your parents, and then to go deeper than that, another layer, you make it mean I'm not safe. My relationship is not going to work out. I'm going to be just like my parents. Whatever that, version
I'm not really loved
of your story is It's super deep. And that's what really, has us disconnect from our partners, because that's
Yeah.
the big lie that we're talking about,
Yeah.
because we don't actually face the real, complaints.
Well, the
We
context.
and the
belief.
context that we have in our relationship.
Is it
Yeah, the
because
belief that
a lot of times, sorry, Rick, that people are not properly expressing themselves? Or
that's part of it for sure.
Mhm.
Well, people experience, traumas or whatever, or they just inherit, whatever the view of reality is for anything, right? I said that
Mhm.
earlier. And so whether or not you resolve those traumas, or it's just something that you inherited and you saw, well, that's how a man and woman are together, right? When
Mhm.
you go into the relationship, you're just on automatic pilot, right? And then when it comes to the unresolved stuff, right? We build a cocoon around ourselves when we have an event happen in our lives where we had to survive it, right? And so we did what we had to do in that moment to survive it, but then we took that cocoon with us and we lived our lives with that cocoon. And whenever anything happens that triggers that trauma or is reminiscent of it, then that cocoon is there. And it could be we push people away with our busyness, or we're really emotional about stuff, or we get angry about stuff, or we're just aloof and we don't talk, or so there's a lot of different ways that we deal with that stuff. And when you're finally in a marriage and you're not going anywhere because you got four walls and a roof and kids and whatever you got,
Mhm.
right? When you come face to face with the issues that you haven't been dealing with,
Mhm.
and the other person is holding up a mirror for you, and it's like, yo, this shit isn't working.
Exactly.
Like something's got to give,
Yeah.
right? And then that's really we really subscribe to the spiritual partnership aspect of relationship, where when your partner's holding up the mirror, that's your work to do,
Exactly.
right? It doesn't justify anybody or anything, right? And it doesn't absolve anybody of any measure of responsibility that they may need to take for their impact on you,
Mhm.
right? Because let's say they went out and they had an affair, right? There's a conversation to have, there's something to be responsible for.
Mhm.
And for you, and I'm not talking about the affair specifically, but that can be included in this, when they're holding up the mirror, when she's holding up the mirror for me, that's work that I got to get to.
Exactly.
I can be as right as I want to about that. No, you're full of shit. I can ask anybody. And and that mirror is still for me,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we don't relate to it like that.
Yeah. And if you don't do that work,
Mhm.
you are going to keep facing a mirror. You hear, I talk to women all the time that will be in one relationship and, their partner cheats or whatever, there's infidelity or an abusive relationship. This is a perfect example.
Mhm.
An abusive relationship. And, most commonly, if they have a chance to get out of that relationship and they don't do the work necessary, that inner self, work, inner healing,
Mhm.
they're going to attract another partner who's going to repeat the same pattern of abuse or infidelity or whatever it is to
Yep. It
show
took me a
you.
long time to understand that. Now, if I did not go through therapy, Yana, I wouldn't have understand what that means. And as simple as what you're saying, you are going to attract the same dysfunction that you had before
Mm-hmm.
if you don't go through the work. I mean, I guess whatever version, our listeners are going to understand, but I totally understand what you're saying. Now, before I wouldn't have, even though what you're saying is simple, because there was a time that I thought I was perfect and I thought my partner was the one with the problem. And I had to be told, no, you're both the same dysfunction. You just don't know how to, I had a brain fart. I was told that you don't know how to properly communicate in your relationship and to get your point across. So you guys are attracting the same person that you're attracting now is the same person that you would attract in your next relationship because you don't know how to do the work. You haven't done the work and you don't know what the work entails.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does take work to, move forward in your relationship.
And I think the issue is, or the opportunity is, depending on how you look at it, is that whatever work you have to do is the work that you have to do within yourself.
True.
So your partner can be variable X, really, like replace, so and so with so and so, all the work that's there for you to do. Right?
Exactly.
Everything that you still need to process, you're going to take it with you everywhere you go.
Yeah. And I think, our kids are an amazing opportunity for us to do that work as
More
well. I
mirrors.
mean, it's different,
Yeah.
different work, but
More
every
mirrors.
relationship is a mirror for us. It
Yeah.
can be, if that's how you choose to live your life.
That's a conscious relationship
Mhm.
view, though. That really is what that is. Like
It
every
is.
relationship is really an opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
And
It
so
is.
if we choose to view it that way, anyway,
Mhm.
right? That's really the relationship to reality that we talk about all the time. If you choose to view every relationship that way, then it's not just your husband or your wife, your kids, your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your friends, the stranger on the street, the person that cut you off that you got all pissed off at,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, you got some right to damn that person to wherever you're damning them to because they cut you off. You know what I mean? Like, we're so important.
Because
can't
we
wait in this
always
damn
think
line.
we're important. Yeah.
Oh
It's
my
all
God, I
about
can't wait in the
self.
line. You cut me off?
Yana said something really, like when she first started off, about we're like a car, and that's the problem with relationships. You know how you get your oil changed in your vehicle, you fine tune your car, you need to change the tires, check, do all that engine stuff. Your relationship consistently needs fine tuning, but people don't do that. We become complacent. We don't show our loved ones appreciation anymore. We're so self-absorbed. We get so busy. We don't make time for anything. And there's always room for improvement. There's always room for improvement in the relationship.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So now, what would be the next steps, guys? So I guess, is there more to the debunking?
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
for
what
the
was
first
the
part was
first
just
one
distinguishing
called?
the context.
Oh,
So you have to
introduction
distinguish
to
the context.
Distinguishing, like noticing what, or identifying, I should say,
Identify. Yeah.
what your context is that's there all the time.
Okay. And
that takes work. Like, that takes actually you being conscious, you being honest, vulnerable. And a lot of times it is a blind spot. It's like what Rick was saying. It's something that you don't know that you don't know.
Exactly.
So that's why it's really helpful to work with somebody like a coach or, a therapist, to have you actually see it, because it's like, we won't see it. Other people are seeing it. Your friends might see it, your family, but when you're in it, you most likely are so right that you're not actually open to seeing it. So a lot of times, if you're not seeing it, you need somebody to really help you see that and identify it.
True. Very true.
Yeah.
And what's the next step? 2?
So there's multiple steps within this, even this first one, right? Like, you still, once you identify what the complaint is, then you have to identify what the impact is of maintaining that complaint.
Okay.
So
first we have to distinguish, and then next we have to identify
the impact.
Identify the impact.
If I am complaining that she doesn't support me and she doesn't believe in me, right? And I just keep getting pissed off. Like, she's never in my world. You don't support me. You don't believe in me. Like, I can't believe I'm going to be with a woman who doesn't believe in me. How did I marry somebody who doesn't believe in me? And I just keep doing that, right? So now I'm actually speaking for myself here.
Gotcha.
And I keep doing that, and I keep pushing her away, and I keep getting pissed at her, and I keep, that whole thing. The impact of my doing that is there's going to be, like, real deep divide between us.
Exactly.
There's going to be a disconnection between us, and that's just going to fester over years of doing that. And my kids will see that. They'll see parents that aren't really loving each other, that aren't connected. It'll impact the family. There'll be, that sort of separation. There's going to be, but like, for me in the relationship, there's a lot of fear and anger and anxiety, frustration and resentment. And these are the things that I get to carry, right? And so when you really start getting present to the impact, so the impact is the impact on your spouse, the impact on you, and the impact on others, right? And on others could be your kids, it could be a bunch of people. right? But that's really it.
Gotcha.
Another way, just really quick
Yeah.
way of saying impact is also it's your experience, the experience of, you know, your relationship, your life that you are having.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like
So
that-
getting related to that,
Okay.
because most of the time we're not related. We're just
No.
in our own world. So
We are in
getting
our own
related
world.
to the experience. So yeah, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah. Like, what are the thoughts and feelings associated with that, right?
Mhm.
And what is the experience of life like now that you've been living with it?
Okay.
Right? Because likely what happens is, you know, we can like, there's going to be a bunch of like nuanced differences, but ultimately your marriage or your relationship becomes a responsibility and a burden that you have to survive.
True. When you gave the example of when you're constantly saying, she doesn't support me, she doesn't support me, she doesn't support me, that's what you mean by the marriage becomes a burden, correct?
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
for her. Because now you're making her feel that whatever she does is not enough because you are absolutely so self-absorbed and you're not properly communicating your feelings to your wife, and your wife is not voicing herself and trying to either understand where you're coming from and she's just shutting you out. Is that how eventually, like, two people will either start to slowly disconnect? Like, you'll be on the same road,
Sure.
holding hands on the same path, but when one partner starts to kind of consistently poke at you, then your hands slip away and you start to drift.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the responsibility would definitely be on both parts, right?
Mhm.
Or the burden, right? Or both, right? It really is on both parts.
Okay.
Right. And then it really does become something that you have to survive.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I said yes, we got kids, we got a mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
It's been 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it is. Like, my parents stuck it out, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. True,
Whatever it is, like
especially
that.
my parents stuck it out. I need to stuck it out. I need to do this for the kids.
Yeah, like that whole concept. And so
It's not created. It's just
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
so anyway, so the impact is next, right? Do you want to talk about
the impact.
No,
That's-
I think we covered the impact.
Mhm.
Like next steps in terms of, like, you know, identifying the context, the
Yeah.
complaint, the impact, responsibility. You love
Yep.
talking about responsibility.
Yeah. So yeah, responsibility. So responsibility is not, you know, so it's being 100% responsible
Mm-hmm.
for that impact, for who you're being in the relationship, that has an impact. So if I'm consistently, I'll use myself as an example.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm consistently being, you know, a victim, not voicing my opinion, not even opinion, but like not expressing myself, not honoring myself,
True.
I'm not asking for help. I'm, you know, making him wrong all the time for not helping me with the dishes or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right. So taking 100% responsibility is really looking at who am I being that this is happening in my relationship.
Exactly.
And it's really taking off the blame, the criticism off of the other person and taking ownership for what you are creating in your relationship, in your life, and really like being honest about that with yourself.
So,
And it doesn't mean that you let him off the hook.
true.
It just means like you got to look at who am I being? Like, where am I not setting my boundaries? Where am I not communicating? Where am I being a victim? Where am I, you know,
not loving myself,
not loving,
honoring myself,
Mhm.
not doing the things that make me feel good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That this is what I am manifesting.
Why do you think, and coaches, the two coaches that you are, the people that you worked with, why do you feel as though people start off relationships with this thinking? Is it because you feel as though what's passed down? And when I say with this thinking, automatically creating this perfect person partner, and that their partner is going to be doing no wrong and I am perfect. And where do you think this thinking comes from? I don't think like you two, your parents, you're not subconsciously telling your children this. We all know relationships are not taught in school. Why do people approach relationships like that? Why can't you just approach a relationship, look at a person and say, hey, he may cheat on me. I don't know what's going to happen
Yeah.
10 years from now. He may, steal
Oh my
from
God,
me,
that's so
and
good.
we may become like debt out of our butts.
Yeah.
Why do we always like, oh no, let's sprinkle the positive and not have realistic conversations and really talk about, listen, if I was to sleep with somebody else, what would happen? If I was to like take all your credit cards and go to the casino and like splurge all our finances, what would happen? We don't have real conversations like this in relationships.
Yeah.
Gosh, I mean, what comes up for me really, and you can talk more about this, but really,
you want the pole position on this.
Well, no, because what really, as kids, so we're born, connected to source.
Yeah.
Connected to spirit, whatever you want to call God.
I agree with
we're
you.
really one, and we feel loved, and we feel like, we don't need others to really make us feel loved because we're so connected. And as we grow older, we feel there's a disconnect from source. So we look for that in our parents, right? We look for that godly love in our parents.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we get disappointed. There's a separation from your parents. And we have this idea that once we fall in love, and this idea that's sold to us, that once we fall in love, then we're gonna, achieve this bliss, this connection with source. We might not, identify it like that, yeah. But that is what we're looking for. We're looking for that fulfillment, for that joy outside of us, because we are disconnected, when we're kids.
I like the response.
So it's really this this hope, this dream that we have to get back connected. And as human beings, that's all we're looking for, is really like that connection, that love that we felt when we came into this world.
I like that.
So I don't know if you want to.
What do you have to say about that, Rick?
That's a drop
from a male perspective.
No, I feel I that's my perspective. I don't think that's a male or female perspective. That's an inclusive perspective. That's an integrated perspective. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Like I think what she said, that there is a separation from love. And from that moment on, we're always looking to fill that separation. We're always looking to get it wherever we can, right? And so that can be in a relationship, it can be in a bottle, it can be in a drug, that can be in work, that can be in whatever, right? Like it's what we look for. Our greatest addiction is love, right? Because we're looking to be loved, right? And really what there is to get is that we're already loved. And for us to do that inner work and to get how incredibly loved we already are. And then when we express ourselves as who we really are, there's an expansion of love that occurs in the world. And when you have two people who are doing that, and you're aligned in your values and in your goals and your commitments and that kind of thing, then you can live a life together, right? You can create a marriage, you can create a partnership, you can do a bunch of stuff. But I don't think people go into relationships saying, well, if I had to profile you, the probability that you would cheat on me is at this percentage between the ages of 18 to 25, between 26 and 39, it's this percentage. And, right? I mean, that's what's up. Probability of our divorce. I mean, if you're a boomer right now, the probability of your divorce is much higher than any other demographic. If you're a baby boomer. Those are the people that are getting the most divorced right now.
Is those the 40s?
Not a coincidence.
They were born in the 40s?
No.
Or the 50s?
Yeah. 40s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have another question I wanted to ask you guys. Why is it that only in relationships that when you meet someone, majority of people start off with 100% trust? Someone you barely even
I don't know if that's true.
You don't think so? Well, I guess it's true for
I don't
me.
think.
Yeah.
I guess I'm speaking for myself. But I feel like most people enter into relationship trusting, I guess, emotional trust. Does that make sense? Where they won't hurt me, but then when they do, then the trust bucket starts to deplete. Am I confusing?
I think, no, you are, but you're not. Like, I don't think we go into...
No, you are, but you're not.
Yeah. I don't think we go into trusting. I think that you go in with that big lie. You're just not being honest about it.
Okay. I mean,
think
I
that's
like
how we
that
go
too.
in.
Hope.
The big lie, the hope.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's another way of interpreting. Instead of using trust, you go in with that bucket of hope until,
sure.
they do something, and then the hope bucket starts to deplete and deplete and deplete.
Well, especially if you have those feelings of love and attraction and lust, infatuation, you're wearing those, colored glasses or lenses that you can't really be honest about stuff with yourself.
Yeah.
And you want to wish for all the, the magical fairy tale.
But I think that's part of I think that's also part of our human spirit, right? We want to dream. We want to believe. We don't go to the movies and watch movies about how shit just doesn't work out in the end. You know what I mean? We love those happy endings, right? And we really want to, right? So, I mean,
it's not just relationships, it's with everything.
Yeah.
We think, oh my God, I'm going to be a mom or whatever. I'm going to be a parent and everything is I'm going to have this amazing, kids that just are so perfect. I remember before becoming a mom, I had this idea, my nephew, he would hit other kids. And I'm like, oh my God, my kids are never going to do that. And they're going to eat all healthy foods. And, and then I became a mom and my daughter was a hitter and she would smack all the kids. And I'm like, what the heck? What's happening? And, refused to eat vegetables. So it's in every area, or even when you dream up a business idea, you have all these amazing ideas and then you get to what it really takes to actually make the business work.
Once
and all of a sudden it's not as
There's
exactly.
nothing fun
so
about
we're just not related. We're not related to what it actually takes. We're related to the ideal, to the dream, and we're not related to the work that it takes. And we don't want to do that work. Nobody freaking wants to do the work. Nobody wants to go to the gym to get the body that, they really want to have.
They look all the aspiration videos.
Yeah. But it's the same with relationships. Nobody freaking wants to do that hard work to have an incredible partnership. But it's in the work, when you actually do the work, where it makes the difference.
Where the positive
on the other
results.
side.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like that. The bucket of hope. So what comes after responsibility?
Well, so there's different things. So we can talk about the program or we can just talk about this. So there's different things. So you have to, once you do that, you can start creating possibilities inside of your relationship, right? Once you got okay, I'm responsible. I got present to the impact. I know the impact on him and on them and on myself, right? And so here's now what I can stand for.
Okay.
So when you get related to what you can stand for, it really comes from a sacred place in you. You really love this conversation too, so I'm gonna let you go with this too. Mm-hmm. It comes from a sacred place inside of you, right? It's a place that you love. It's a place where that comes from. It's a place where you're not trying to fix anything. It's just when you really ground inside of who you are and what you're for in this world. And why are you married? Why do you have a family? Really? Not oh, I fell in love and he or she's so great and that's why we're married. No, there's a genuine reason why you chose marriage.
Exactly.
It had nothing to do with what you inherited. There's something that's really there for you. Why did you choose children?
Yeah.
Well, we're supposed to. That's what you do. No, there's something there for you. And so what we call that, when you really connect with who you are and what you're for, when you really ground in that heart-centered space, what we call that is the big why. Why are you X? Why are you married? Why are you in a relationship? Why do you have a family? Why are you a mom? And so the big why is really that possibility that you create for your marriage. It's the possibility you create for your life. And when your marriage, your life, your relationship is governed by that context, now you have something to be responsible for that isn't just your complaint or the impact of that complaint, but the future you're now living into. So what does it take now that you have a future in front of you that you're committed to creating? And it's a sacred place that you come from, right? It's a heart-centered place that you come from. How do you get responsible for that? How do you create that? How do you have that? How do you go from having that be an idea to manifesting it into reality.
Exactly.
Right? And so how do you empower yourself to do that? And when I use the word power, I'm really talking about the rate at which you manifest your intention into reality.
It all starts
So
with
how do you
you.
empower yourself?
It definitely all
Yeah.
starts with you when, regardless what you're doing, or what type of relationship that it may be with your friends or with your family. Rick points out a good point. Everything has a deeper meaning to it, as of to why you want children, why you want to be married, why do you want to be single, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Well, it's
Yana,
that why that really grounds you, that
yeah.
really will keep you, moving forward, will keep you through the difficult circumstances. It's that why.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're related to the why, and when that why is bigger than, the complaints that we have,
Mm-hmm.
then you can actually keep moving forward and keep coming back to that why and keep letting go of the complaints and the ways of being that aren't aligned with that why.
Exactly.
And really focusing on who do I have to be in order to have that.
So,
And I will say this about that. It's really an interesting phenomenon that occurs when you shift your context in your life, when you do it consciously and you really put in the work to do it, because it takes work. And you really put that practice in and you do it every single day. And you distinguish your complaints, you distinguish all of that stuff, and then you switch to, oh, this is my why, this is why I'm doing it. And you relate more to your why, right? More to that aspect that lights you up, that enlivens you and motivates you and inspires you, right? The more you relate to that in your life, the greater pull it has on you. It pulls you forward in life and you take actions because you literally feel like I'm pulled to do something right now. Like there's no way I can go back to being right and complaining and saying how full of shit he is or how full of shit she is. Like I can't do that because it doesn't have integrity for me in my own life, in my own heart, in the way that I'm committed to living my life. I want to fast forward on my life and I want to know that I met that moment living into a future that I was pulled into. And the more you relate to your big why, the more you practice it, the more you have it be a part of your everyday routine, the greater the relationship to reality you have that's governed by that context. And you end up being more lit up about it. You dig your marriage more, you dig your relationship more, you dig your family more, you dig your day. Like everything just becomes better when you relate to this is what's possible in my life. Because this live or die, this is what I want.
I absolutely agree because I see it in my own relationship. Do you two also believe that when one discovers their why and they do the inner work that needs to be done and they really truly reflect and realize that it all starts with me? Do you also realize and feel that that's why people can take negative situations from their relationship, especially, and turn them into positives? And no matter what little issue you may run into your relationship, it's all able to be changed and looked at differently if we just all start with yourself.
Yeah, 100.
Yeah.
I think that initially you look at it when you look at life like that, when you look at life the way you're talking about it, your context is I'm the source.
Yeah.
If you're gonna look at that, it starts with me.
Yeah.
Right? Then it's because you come from a context where I'm the source of this.
It's all for me.
And it's all for me. It's not happening to me. That's right. Right. And so when you come from that and you experience something that on the off the cuff you'd call it, well, this is a problem or this is an issue or this pisses me off or I'm sad or upset or whatever, frustrated by that. Initially it's that. And then you distinguish it and you're like, no, wait, this is how is it for me? Who am I
Exactly.
being? What am I doing?
I agree. I feel like every relationship can always be refulfilled and brought joy back into it. It just depends on the two people who are in the relationship and how much fine tuning they're willing to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I don't like when relationships break up at all. It really breaks my heart. Or when people, even in my own situation, people had a lot of comments to say of how could you stay with him or how could he stay with you since you've both stepped into the infidelity world. But, I said, well, truth be told, number one, you can really, truly never understand where we're coming from. And I think no matter how much we explain it to you, because there are some people that are truly like, once they cheat, that's it. And at one time I had that thinking, but now I don't have that thinking anymore. I don't feel like once a cheater, always a cheater. I don't believe in that. It's my belief in once a failure, always a failure. And I don't believe in that. So I feel like anything can be changed around. So I totally understand. I like it is the why. I like your hope bucket. I'll steal that. Instead of hope, I'll change it to, instead of trust, I'll change it to hope. Everyone has hope. Their hope bucket starts off at 100% until someone makes them mad. Then it's down to 90.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So now the question I have for you guys in your program, we were talking about, I got to go back to this with my farty brain, the invisible pitfall that keeps us from having fulfillment and joy in our marriage. So what are 3 pieces of advice that you would have to offer our listeners based off of your program? 3 tips that you can offer for people to take away if they're going through anything in their relationship, emotional issues, emotional abuse, financial abuse, might even be physical abuse. We don't know. People experience so many different things, to figure out a way to bring fulfillment and joy back into their relationship.
Well, I think the first thing I would say, you gotta bring fulfillment and joy into your own life first. Like really get flat on where you're stuck in the complaint loop, right? Because most of the time it starts with us, just like what we've been talking about. So most of the time when we are seeing all of the negative things in our partners, it is most of the time things that we aren't happy with in ourselves.
It goes along the line of the reason why you're mean to somebody else. It's because you're looking at yourself and your issues.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Okay.
So that's what I would say is really like look at self first, and what's that complaint and where are you finding it in yourself?
Okay.
And do that work first before you start, going and telling the other person you're this or you're that or whatever. What's another thing?
Well, you brought up something, people that are experiencing abuse in the relationship. I think that's a separate conversation, just to be clear, right? People who are really going through abuse, they need to get help. They need to go and see a professional who can support them in going through the stages that people in those circumstances have to deal with, right? Because that's has to be said. Yeah. There's no, let me read this book or let me take that class or no, you got to go and talk to somebody immediately who can support you to get through that. Agree. That is. For me, I think that what I would say the number one thing that we encounter with people is that it's not really. There's a lot of stuff that's going down, right? But you can really boil it down to how you're communicating about stuff. So I think we think that because we know how to talk, we know how to communicate. But that ain't it, right? And people are like, I'm going to tell you what I think. I really don't care what you think, right? Like that. Well, I'm really eloquent. I can tell you exactly what I think in these tremendously nuanced and sophisticated ways. And so I know you're going to get it. And I can calm down and I can tell you like this and I can do, and I took a neurolinguistics programming class, so I can even mirror your body and sit the way you're sitting and make sure, we don't know how to talk to each other. We don't know how to listen to each other. We don't know how to communicate successfully. And so I would say my tip, and after, I think Giannis is really, that's really the one, right? You got to make sure that it starts with you first. But it's communicate. Learn to listen.
You're
really get into your partner's world.
Many of us are poor communicators and we don't realize it.
But most of us suck at communicating because we can't listen. We can't just sit there and really get into the other person's world and get what they're saying and not have to invalidate it, not have to get defensive or self-righteous or anything at all. We can just say, let's get into your world today and let's listen to whatever you have to say. And I'm going to be over there where you are. And I'm going to get
Listening
what that's
is
like.
a skill because as soon as that person starts talking, they'll say one word that you don't like. All of the
That's
listening
right.
is all in the garbage, and there will point out that one thing you said. Oh, you think I talk too much? That's not what
right.
I said.
That's right.
So
There was this one time, I will tell you, there's this one time I was so upset with Yana. I was really upset. And I'm not kidding you, I could have asked the whole planet if I'm right. And in my mind, the whole planet would have said, yes, you're right. I was really upset. And it had to do with the way she was with the kids and this whole thing. And so she comes back and she's like, I need to say something to you. And I was like, not trying to hear it at all. And she said, our daughter said she's afraid.
Oh.
And I was so pissed off. I was like, that's not the issue. I'm the dad. She's supposed. And I stopped. And I got what she said. And I listened. Mm-hmm. And it had an impact. I changed my behavior. Like I shifted the way I was being with my daughter. There was this whole thing that happened after that. But that wouldn't have been available had I just been right about how full of it Yana was or how wrong she was or whatever. It wouldn't have been available to me.
Are you an extrovert?
No, I'd call myself more of an introvert. I would.
No. Are you an introvert?
Doesn't sound like it right now.
Are you an introvert?
I think I'm an extrovert, actually.
Oh my God, you two are total opposites from what I'm visually looking at.
What you thought, really?
Yeah.
Oh, totally. He seems like an extrovert and you seem like an introvert from just looking at you guys. I know I'm like all scoping y'all out like introvert, extrovert.
I like being alone more. She likes being with people a lot more.
Really?
I think it depends. I think it's all, I hate labels because I'm like, sometimes I don't want to be around people. And then there are other times that I love it and I just want to be around people. And,
really?
So yeah, absolutely.
Sorry to throw you guys off.
No, it's okay.
But yeah, so learn to communicate. In fact, we do a free 5-day communication class for people. Okay. And it's like,
is that available all year round?
We have it like every 6 weeks.
Okay. So once we're done.
There's another one coming up in August.
Okay. By the time we post this.
By the time this posts in November, there'll be another one.
There'll be another one available. Yeah. But all the information will be on the website. So that way, when the time does come, it will be available to them. Okay. Yeah. And what's the third suggestion that you guys have?
Have fun.
Have fun. And also this is something that we literally did yesterday, is we had an alignment meeting. But when you really create a vision for what you want, so I guess it's a 2-part thing, is really have a vision where you guys are aligned on in your relationship. One of the things is if 2 people don't have a vision that they're aligned on, it's going to be very hard to move forward in a relationship, to have that connection. So really get clear on that vision. That's something that we actually support people in doing in the program. And then once you have that vision, keep doing the work to align with the vision and to clear whatever stuff is in the way of you really, being grounded in that vision, because stuff is
accountable for that vision.
And accountable.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I like how you're like, have fun and be grounded.
Yeah, and have fun
vision.
is
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good. I like our conversation today, and really, truly, what the whole conversation boils out to is we all need to be accountable for ourselves and our actions and our words and what the energy we're putting out into the world, and stop blaming our significant others for things that probably all start with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They got their work to do, but that's none of your business. Exactly. Do your own work.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And really, I think also just to put a cap on what you said, it's also, live into a future that you love.
Yeah.
have a vision for it and be responsible for that part, not just for, what you're doing that isn't working. Like, really, I was asked once, how good are you willing to have your life be?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a good question because it was tough to answer at that time.
How good are you willing to have your life be? That's a good response. I don't even know how to answer that.
Well,
that's
one of those things you gotta think.
you.
Yeah, food for thought. How good are you
so
willing
in your
to
marriage,
have
you
your
can
life
write,
be?
here's our vision, here's what we're going after, and let's be responsible for that life.
Yep.
I like how you called it an alignment meeting. We usually have try to have like 15 minutes a day, but there's so many different terms for so many different things. But I like your alignment meeting that you guys have to align yourselves, I guess, financially, emotionally. Yeah. That's good. All right, guys. So we had a great conversation today with Yana and Rick, really connecting deep, talking about how to have fulfillment and joy in your relationship. They had great advice to offer. And if we had to boil everything down, it all starts with us. It all starts with checking in with yourself. One last thing that Yana said that I really liked was just have fun and, be accountable for some of the decisions that you're making. Don't always blame your partner. They have their own work that they need to do as well. Focus on yourself. Find out your why. These are all important things that we need to focus on. We like to point the finger a lot. I realize as people, I've done it. Many of us have done it. So, realize that that's not okay. So as we end today and every episode, I always like to say thank you for listening. And as always, love yourself, voice yourself, and be yourself. And until the next episode, all the information for Yana and Rick will be available on the website so that you can go to their website, look around, sign up for their coaching, and participate in the Fight Less, Love More communication course every 6 weeks. So by the time this post airs, there will be one coming up if it's not close enough to that time. So you guys have a great day. Until next time. Thanks for tuning in to Fanpale Podcast. If you want to continue the conversation or share your takeaways, I want to hear from you. Head on over to the website or join our Facebook community and comment your favorite part of the show or share your thoughts. I want to hear what you have to say. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Chat with you next week.